Hey, my fellow fellows, sorry for the wait, but, I've got a big video for you today. Do any of you remember Cuphead? You know, the game released in, 2017 or so. Then 2022, we got a TV show and a DLC. And then after 2023, when the third season released, it kind of fell off the face of the earth. Oh, wait, no, the third season of the show, I meant. But, yeah. You actually remember that show? Because, yeah. I'm here to talk about it today. Specifically the game. And I might cover I'll cover the DLC and show in separate videos. But today I'm just going to talk about the base 3 aisles of Cuphead. So, yeah. Let's just not waste any more time. Let's just get into this video. So, the game starts off with a little introduction on an actually live-action book, which basically explains how the game begins. So, it's just our two favorite brothers, Cuphead or Mugman, one of which you can play at any given time, or you can play two-player, and they're just, playing together, doing stuff, catching butterflies, I think. I don't know. Maybe my brain's just tainted from if Cuphead was realistic. Thanks, Smash Bits. But anyways, besides that, we also have the let's see. Oh yeah, back on track. So Cuphead and Mugman end up somehow getting to a casino, which is called the Devil's Casino. So yeah, you can really tell who runs it, especially if you played the game. But yeah, basically Cuphead and Mugman go in there, start gambling, and they're doing pretty good, I'd say. Enough to get the devil himself to appear in front of them and offer them a deal. If they manage to win the next roll, they get everything in the casino, like all the winnings that it's compiled. But if they lose, he gets their souls. Cuphead takes it without a second thought and loses. What else did you expect? And then, after a bit of pleading on their part, the devil works out an alternative. They have to collect the souls of people who still owe him their souls but refuse to pay up. Alright, so there are people throughout the Inkwell Isles, that's the name of this fictional world, by the way, who still haven't paid their souls to him. So he is offering that Cuphead and Mugman go out and collect their souls and bring them to him. And if they manage to do that by that night, I think, they get to keep their souls. And, that's actually a plot hole I've noticed for this game. You see, the game specifically states that if they don't get the souls back to him by midnight, then the deal's off. But technically, they've already lost before they even passed Inkwell Isle 1. Because in one of the boss fights I'll mention, it switches to night. Now when you beat her, it switches to day. So you've already lost. And then when you get to Blippi the Clown, I think that's his name, yeah, I'm pretty sure it is, then it switches to night again. And then in Aisle 3, it switches to night once again with the final boss, hopefully, of Aisle 3. So that's a plot hole I've noticed. You should have lost your souls before you even get past Aisle 1. But let's shove that minor grievance of mine aside and continue on with the game. So, Elder Kettle, your dad, grandpa, adoptive guardian, I don't know. He gives you a potion that for some reason he has that allows you to shoot bullets from your fingers, which is one of the main mechanics of the game. And then you go through a quick tutorial. Undertale has plagued my mind. A tutorial where you learn all the basic mechanics like ducking, jumping, jump dodging, which has gotten several critics angry, and of course shooting. And they even teach you a 2-player exclusive mechanic where, so let's say you're playing the game 2-player, alright? So you're Cuphead and someone else is Mugman. So Mugman gets killed. You can parry on their soul, which, by the way, parrying is basically like jump and then press the jump button again once you hit something pink. and it'll parry it, which will give you something that I'll discuss later. So you parry the soul, and it brings him back with 1 HP. So, yeah, that's a pretty cool mechanic, but, yeah, there's also EXs. So, every time you parry, it adds to your EX meter, and EXs are basically, like, the special version of the ability. Like, if the gun you're currently using, like the P-shooter, for example, is the base version, then the EX, in the P-shooter's case, the Hadouken, is the premium version. And then, after the tutorial, you get a coin, and then you get to leave, and you hear the Inkwell Isle 1 soundtrack. And by the way, if Undertale did not exist, I would say this has one of, if not the best OST in gaming. Like, seriously, this game is such a good OST. But, anyways, ignoring that, we shall move on to the first boss of actually, no, not the first boss. So right after you leave, you can encounter this apple who's currently fishing, and after a brief talk with him, he'll give you 3 coins, and coins can be spent at a shop run by this guy called Pork Rind. He'll be very important when we talk about the Cuphead show. But, yeah, basically, Cuphead... One second. Oh, yeah. So, you can go in there and buy different kinds of finger guns. For example, finger gun that shoots multiple short-range blasts, or a finger gun that tracks and does barely any damage. And then, once you get to the DLC, that adds even more, which I'll talk about there. But, for now, I'm just going to run down over every single base game weapon. Now, I've already talked about the P-shooter, but now we're going to move on to Spread Shot, which is basically a rapid-fire shotgun. It fires 3 blasts at a time, 3 shots at a time, but they're very short range. But if you can get up close with them, they deal massive damage. And the EX basically sends out a circle of spikes around you. So, yeah, pretty good. So now let's move on to the next weapon that I'll talk about. So, Chaser is basically a tracking weapon, which they released a better version of in the DLC, but I'll talk about that when I get to that video. But, yeah, basically, it chases, it's basically like a homing missile, except it barely does any damage at all. And the EX is, oh yeah, it sends, a little ring of green bees around you that, damage the enemy if you touch them with it. So you can just, ring around you, go up to the enemy, make sure that you don't get close enough to be damaged by them, and get a few good hits on them. But, yeah, pretty mid. Next is what's commonly regarded as one of the strongest weapons in Cuphead, the Lobber. It's very short range, but it does a considerable amount of damage, and it also bounces, which can lead to something called lobber traps. For instance, let's skip ahead in time a bit to the Blippi the Clown boss fight. When you fight him, in his 3rd phase, he is a carousel, no, not a carousel, not a merry-go-round, I don't know what, but it rises from the ground, so you can set a lobber trap by just aiming up in the air and shooting and firing the lobber a bunch of times to, set up a bunch of them, which will all damage him at the exact same time once that becomes possible. That's something you can do with multiple bosses, and it's pretty freaking cool. Oh yeah, I almost forgot to mention the EX. The EX is a big lobber. Next is the Charge Shot, which you can fire it off uncharged, which is, it's somehow still stronger than the Chaser. Chaser, you beta. But, did I unironically just say beta? What is wrong with me? Anyways, yeah, then there's the charged version, which deals a lot of damage, but takes a bit to charge up, as you can imagine, from it being a charge shot. And then the EX is basically a punch. You have to get really up close with it, point-blank range. But it does massive damage. It's pretty good for some runs. Next up is Roundabout, which is basically a boomerang, and much like Lobber, it can be used to set up traps, which is pretty freaking cool. In the Sally Stage Play boss fight, skipping ahead again, you can, she comes in from either the left or the right, and if you guess correctly, you can fire off a bunch of roundabouts, which will all hit her at the same time once before she even starts attacking, so you can get a good advantage. And the EX is basically just, like, it fires off a buzzsaw, I guess, which follows you around, and after a certain amount of time, it will disintegrate. But if you touch it before that happens, it'll also disintegrate, so you have to keep on the move if you want to get the most out of it. So, now that we're done with the weapons, let's move on to the charms, which is basically like special abilities. Like, you can equip one and you'll have like a certain ability throughout like, as long as you're using it. So, first of all is Heart, which it reduces your damage but gives you 1 extra heart of health. Like, typically, you have 3, unless you're using Miss Chalice, but I'll get to that in the DLC video. But, yeah, usually you have 3 hearts, and if you get damaged 3 times, then you lose. Like, you have to restart the fight from Phase 1. But this, it reduces your damage on all weapons, but it gives you an extra heart. Then there's its brother, Twin Heart, which does the same, except it gives you 1 extra heart and reduces your damage even more. Next up is Pea Sugar, which it's basically an automatic parry. Like, it doesn't work every time you parry it. Like, the first time that you parry in a certain jump, it'll automatically do it for you. And then, once you, one second. Oh yeah. Then, once you jump again, then once you hit the ground, it resets, so you can do that again. However, you can't just keep using Pea Sugar in a certain chain. Like, you can only use Pea Sugar once in a certain chain, then you have to do it manually. You get what I mean. Anyways, moving on to the next one, which is Smoke Bomb. Probably the most iconic charm of, like, the original, like, base game. So, this one will allow you to use your dash ability, which I forgot you can do that. Like, you can dash across the screen for some extra, like, temporary speed. But this one allows you to do that while also, it's basically teleportation. It's probably one of, if not the best charm from the original game, in my opinion. And the opinion of many other people. Next up is Coffee, which, you know the EX meter, right? Well, this will slowly but surely automatically fill that up for you, so you don't have to do that yourself. Like, of course you will do it yourself. Like, that's basically, you have to. But, yeah, you'll get an extra boost. Finally, probably the most laughed at in this whole game, probably, Whetstone. This one, it's a cool concept. The first parry in every jump will become an attack. So, like, you can parry off of enemies to damage them. But, yeah, it's mainly good in plane fights, and that's about it. But, yeah, it does become even stronger with the, no, save it for the DLC video, idiot. But anyways, we're done with the weapons and charms, finally, so now we can actually move on to the bosses. So, the first boss of the game is actually a choice between Goopy Le Grande and the Root Pack. So, let's assume you go for the Root Pack first, like I did. So, the first phase is with Sal Spud, who will shoot balls of dirt at you, and every 4th one, I think it is, will be pink, so you can parry off of it to increase your EX meter. And then once you get him down, that's the end of Phase 1. Then Phase 2 is Ollie Onion, which actually has a secret, which I'll discuss at the end of this section. So, this one basically, like, fires tears down from the sky, some of which will be parryable, but it's a lot riskier than going for the parry on Sal. But once you're done with him, you'll move on to, I forget the last one's name. I'll just call him Carrot Man. So, he fires down homing carrots at you, and also fires laser beams from his third eye, because everyone knows carrots help you with your eyesight. Totally not a misconception. But, anyways, pretty simple, but, there's actually a secret phase. So, let's say you choose not to start attacking Ollie immediately. He'll blush and go back into the ground, and you'll automatically move on to Phase 2. No, Phase 3. However, you'll also have to deal with a little radish spinning across your screen, so you can also deal with him. But it allows you to skip the second phase. So, make your choice. And then there's Goopy LaGrande, or Goopy LaGrande, as some people call him. I call him Goopy LaGrande. But, yeah. Phase 1, he's just bouncing across the screen. You know, pretty normal stuff. And then he takes a jelly bean. I'm not going to say the name of the actual thing, because I feel like YouTube's going to flag me for it. But, yeah, that's basically just jumping, but bigger. And, oh yeah, it also gives you a good lesson on parrying, because once he takes the jelly bean, some pink question marks appear above his head, so you can parry off of them. Oh yeah, and both these phases also have a punch, so in the first phase, he'll lean back into his body, you know, a boxing glove to punch you. Then the second one, he'll try to punch you with an actual boxing glove. And then in the third phase, he dies, and you have to dodge his gravestones trying to slam you. But, yeah, then you're done with that. So, yeah, let's keep going down down what I'll call the root pack route. But, yeah, once you beat the root pack, you get access to Ribby and Croaks, two frogs who run a boat. And, yeah, here's how. So the first phase is the short one. I think it's Croaks, the short one. Yeah, I'm just gonna say Croaks. The Croaks fires Hadoukens at you, basically. And I think every 1 in 3 is parryable, so you can get a better EX meter. And then after he's done with that, Ribby just spits out fireflies, which slowly track you, so you have to deal with those while you're dodging Hadoukens. Pretty simple, right? Then, when phase 2 rolls around, then, what's that? Oh yeah, so, I think it's Ribby who turns into a fan, pushing you towards Croaks, who starts clapping to fire like, bouncing balls at you. So you'll either run into the bouncing balls, or you'll run into Croaks, which, by the way, touching a boss in this game damages you. And then, once that phase is done with, up comes phase 3, which is probably the most complex so far. So, in phase 3, Ribby eats Croaks, and they turn into a slot machine, so you'll have to dodge coins. And then, oh, by the way, in this time when you're dodging coins, you cannot damage them. You'll have to parry a boxing glove, which will let it activate one of 3 various, attacks. Attack 1, the frog attack, is literally just jumping between platforms. Pretty simple. Attack 2, or the bull attack, is, there will be little platforms coming down through, the middle of your screen. And if there's a little blue flame coming from the top, stay at the bottom. But if there's a little blue flame coming from the bottom, jump on top of the platforms. Pretty simple, right? And then there's the tiger phase, or attack 3, which should honestly be renamed to the bull phase, because it is bull. So there's platforms coming along the bottom, much like the frog phase, but it's also firing up little bouncy balls, so you'll have to maneuver through those. And by the way, Smoke Bomb makes this phase a bit easier. Not a lot easier, but a bit. Oh yeah, only during these attacks can you, attack them and damage them. And then once you've beaten that, boom, you've collected their soul. Done. So, yeah. Now we'll move on to the next boss fight in this section, in this route, which is actually something different. It's a mausoleum. So, the mausoleums in this game are pretty interesting. So, you go into them, and there's no, attacking them. You can't get damage, and you also can't, damage them. You'll have to parry off of ghosts to, protect an urn, which holds something in it. So, once you've done that for long enough, then out will pop Miss Chalice, who will be very important to the DLC, and she will grant you a super ability. So, you'll get 1 super for every isle in the game. Well, except for Inkwell Hell, but that doesn't really count as an isle. But, anyways, you will get, the super from Miss Chalice as a reward for completing the mausoleum. However, these are not mandatory for completing the game. They just make your they just make it a lot easier. So, yeah. Once you've done that, we'll move. So now we'll move on to what will happen if you beat Groupie Legrande first. So you go up and you'll have to do a brief tutorial on how to fly the planes, because there will also be some boss fights in this game which are plane based, and you have 2 attacks: bombs, which fire slowly, and they're basically the lobber attack but for planes, and the pea shooter, which is literally just a pea shooter. No surprise there. And you can also shrink instead of dodging, so you can like fit between gaps easier. Because like, yeah, it'd be a lot easier to fit that in than dodging a plane. But yeah, and parrying is also a lot easier because you literally just fly up to the thing, hope that you don't get attacked by it, and then press what would usually be the jump button instead of jump, jump. It's just hover, jump. Yeah. So, now we'll move on to the first plane-based boss, Hildeberg. So, in Phase 1, she'll laugh at you, which can damage you, and also send little mini blimps after you, which will fire little bullets, some of which are parryable. However, you'll want to get rid of the green ones, because those fire off 3, and none of them will ever be able to be parried. However, it's best to leave the purple ones alone, since they only fire off 1, and there's a chance for it to be pink. So, yeah. Besides that, let's move on to... But yeah, that's about it for that phase. And then, the next phase is Hildeberg transforming into a star sign, which, on normal mode, will always be the, Taurus. I'll cover expert mode at some point in the future, but, yeah, the Taurus is pretty simple. It just hovers from the top and bottom of the screen and lunges at you. So, yeah, it's pretty simple to dodge, and then we get on to the second phase, which is, the third phase, which is the same as the first phase, except now she's also firing bouncing tornadoes at you. And, then we move on to the third phase, which is either the... Oh yeah, and I mentioned that Hildeberg has the most phases in the entire game, technically. So, yeah, Phase 4, basically is her either transforming into 1, Sagittarius, so you'll be dodging, so she'll fire arrows at you, and then little stars will be tracking you, and that's pretty much one of the few points in the game where it's good to have whetstone on you. And then there's the Gemini twins, which will summon a circle, which will start firing bullets at you in a circle pattern. And then after that, we move on to the after that we move on to the Then there's Phase 5, which is the exact same as Phase 3, like a carbon copy. But then, once you beat Phase 5, you move on to undoubtedly the most epic phase in this fight, Phase 6, where instead of being like a blimp lady, she will turn into a moon, and UFOs will come from the skies, while you're also dodging stars, and the mini blimps, by the way, and also on occasion, her face will pop out, giving you even less room to dodge. And then there's also the UFOs themselves, which are actually color-coded. Now, correct me if I'm wrong here, but I believe with the brown UFOs, they'll beam down ahead of before you're there, so you'll have to stick back for those ones, like kind of get close to being in their range, but then boop, go back, so they'll fire off without actually harming you. Then the red ones will fire down right as you're below them, so you'll have to go in there, shrink, which will make you faster, and then get out. Actually, no, I think it's the other way around. The brown ones fire when they're right above you, and then the red ones fire if they're right in front of you. So, yeah, once you've beaten that, you've beaten what's meant to be the penultimate boss of Isle 1. And then, finally, the final boss of the first Isle, Cagney Carnation. Now, this one's a fun one. So, the first phase is, firing boomerangs at you later on into it, and also tracking nuts. And yeah, and there's also then there's also two other attacks which he does the rest of the time. One where he stretches out his face either on the platforms above you, which are only really there for this fight, and maybe one or two more, I don't know. And then below you, so or below you, like it can be one of those two, so you'll have to check by depending on like where he's preparing to attack. And then there's also his second attack, which will fire down seeds from the sky, one of which you can parry. However, if you don't, it'll create like this little flying thingamabobber who fires down other things at you until you destroy it. And then phase 2, is restricted to the top platform because there's vines like that will damage you on the first floor. I'm just gonna call it first floor, and now you'll have to dodge. You'll have to dodge like little pieces of pollen, I think, that will blur your vision, making it harder for you to fight back. As well as what was his other attack? Oh yeah, he'll also extend vines on some of the platforms. You'll have to dodge to other ones in order to not get vined. Do it for the vine! But yeah, once you beat that, you've beaten Cagney Carnation, and you've officially beaten the first aisle. However, we also have to talk about the running gun levels. So the first running gun level is pretty simple. You know, just actually, you know what? Nah, they're pretty much all the same. Just they get harder. I'll just call out like the mini bosses, basically. So the mini boss of the first one, Forest Follies, is a nut making machine that will fire nuts, which will drop on top of you. So you have to dodge those while also attacking the nut maker, the nut maker, and yeah. So that's. Oh yeah, there's also a treetop trouble, I think it's called. I don't remember all too much. I haven't played the game in a long time. And yeah, basically the mini boss of that one will fire fireballs at some of the platforms you can stand on, so you'll have to kill that one. And then finally is actually no, that's it for round 1. And then you move on to the die house, which yeah, then you get a brief interaction with King Dice, the devil's right hand man, basically. And yeah, after that you move on to aisle 2 and get a brief cutscene where Elder Kettle explains basically to the players that, hey, you just collect all these contracts and then go to the devil himself and don't give them to him and just fight him to the death and hope you don't die. Yeah, great work, Elder Kettle. You're really looking after your kids, grandkids. I don't know what they are to you, but anyways, moving on. Next up is aisle 2. We're finally at it, nearly half an hour into the video. Oh my god, this is gonna be a long one. Actually, no, I'll just talk about aisle 2 in this one, and then talk about aisles 3 and Inkwell Hell in the next video. So, aisle 1 is... So, there are 3 bosses immediately available to you once you enter aisle 2. And, oh yeah, I forgot to mention that the bombs weren't originally available to you in the Hildeberg fight. They only become available once you reach aisle 2. So... You, oh yeah, I forgot to mention what the super ability does, so sorry, but, yeah, in, like, regular, like ground levels, your first super ability is basically, like, a laser beam, like, a big, like, it's basically, like, if the EX for the P-Shooter is a Hadouken, then Super 1 is basically a Kamehameha, but, yeah. And then in the air, it turns you into a bomb so you can fly directly into the enemy. Yeah. And then, so sorry. But, anyways, finally moving on to aisle 2. There are 3 bosses immediately available to you. So I'll start off with Blippy the Clown. Or is it Bippy? I don't know. Let me check. It's not either of them. It's Beppy. I've been saying Blippy the whole time because I'm getting confused with some kids YouTuber. Oh my god. But anyways, Beppy the Clown's first phase involves him he's in like a little like a car, like a mini bumper car, I guess. Cause yeah, this is set in a carnival, and his first phase he's swerving between like the two areas. There's also rubber ducks, so you'll also have to avoid those. Well, not rubber, they're cardboard cutouts of rubber ducks. So you'll have to avoid / parry those, depending on the color. And once you've beaten that very simple phase, you move on to phase 2, where he's a blow-up balloon firing other blow-up balloons at you, so you can destroy or parry those. And now there's also a roller coaster coming after you, so you can parry the nose, and you'll also have to dodge the civilians on top of it. Well, not civilians, more like crash dummies, while also damaging Blippy. No, not Beppy. So while attacking Beppy, and yeah. Oh yeah, this is also one of the bosses that you won't harm you if you touch them. This is a background boss. So the difference between foreground and background bosses. For instance, let's say Cagney Carnation. He's a foreground boss, right? So Cagney, like if you touch his model, it will damage you. So you can't touch Cagney. However, with this phase of the Beppy fight, he is a background boss, meaning that you can touch his sprite, I guess, without it harming you, because otherwise you literally can't move anywhere. You're basically screwed. I mean, this game's hard, but it's not unfair. At most points, at least. I'll get onto that later. Screw you, Grim. But anyways, yeah, back to the subject at hand. The third phase is both the roller coaster and 2 different types of kind of, I don't know, merry-go-round horses. I'm just gonna call them horses. So the yellow ones will fire off a round of horseshoes, which will then come back down, so you'll have to find the gap in between the horseshoes, otherwise you'll get hit by one from above. And then for the other one, it's literally just firing them in a swirl, in like a little wave pattern. So if you get stuck with the roller coaster, specifically with the second one, then yeah, it's gonna be the first one. It's gonna be pretty hard to dodge. But anyways, on to the fourth and final phase, in which he is I'm just gonna call it like a swing. You know, like those really big swings that lift you really high into the air and swing you in a circle. Yeah, those ones. I'm just gonna call it swing. His swing phase, where you have platforms to dodge the roller coaster, so you won't have to deal with that much, luckily. And he's also spitting out I think baseballs last time I'm gonna go check the boss fight. Wait, no, he doesn't fire baseballs. He fires penguins, who then fire baseballs at you. So you'll have to get rid of the penguins, unless the roller coaster does it first. Finally, it's good for something. And, oh yeah, this is also one of the times we can set up the lobber trap, because you can just fire into the air with the lobber, and it'll do some pretty big damage before he's even trying to attack you. So, yeah, there's a little tip for you. And also, if you have any EXs and your secondary weapon or primary is spread shot. Oh yeah, you can also equip 2 weapons and switch between them. So if you equip spread shot and have a bunch of EXs saved up, I'd recommend using them right at the start of his phase, which will also deal a great amount of damage since they'll all go right into him. So yeah, once you've beaten that, you've beaten Beppy. So now let's move on to Baroness von Bonbon, who in the first phase will send, the first 3 phases, she'll just send out a random minion. So let me just list off those minions for you. So let's start off with the Lord, one second, I already forgot their name. Lord Godpacker, who just swirls around the screen with his little minion. Like, you'll have to dodge a big one and a small one. And then there's also Colonel Von Pop, who I hate this one with every fiber of my being. It will go in rectangular shapes, but also sometimes it'll go up or down the middle. But anyways, I'll put my grievances with him aside to continue with the video. Next is Mufsky Chernikov, that's a weird name, who will basically jump up into the sky and then splash down, which will give you like a little splash effect, which you'll have to get. Oh yeah, there's also a platform I forgot to mention that'll move back and forth. So you can use that platform to dodge him pretty easily. I'm not going to say that name every single time I refer to him. But anyways, moving on from him, we have the next mini-boss. So, Wolfington the Third. Yeah, he's pretty simple. He floats around the screen, and occasionally he will burst out into separate bits. So you'll have to dodge his bits. And then, is there anything else? Let me check the wiki again. Oh yeah, there's also Sergeant Gumbo Gumble, who will he'll run around the screen. So Smoke Bomb is very helpful for this one, and fire gumballs from the sky. So you'll have to dodge them, which is actually easier than you think once you get used to it. But yeah. The first phase, it's just the mini-boss. Then the second phase, it's the mini-boss and also a little jelly bean, which will run past through the screen every once in a while, so I have to look out for that. And some of them can be pink. Then the third one, it's the mini-boss, the jelly bean, and Baroness von Bonbon herself from the top of her castle with a candy shotgun, which is, of course, a candy cane, because it has to be. I mean, come on. But yeah, then in comes phase 4, in which you will have to run away from the Baroness von Bonbon's moving castle while also dodging her head. She will literally decapitate herself and throw her head at you. And yeah, you'll also have to dodge a peppermint, which will also always be parryable, so that's helpful, at least. And then once you've beaten that, you've beaten her, and then you can move on. But then there's also the third initial boss that you can interact with, Jimmy the Great. And also, Jimmy is actually pretty helpful previously, besides this, with his wishes. You see, Jimmy had, pretty sure this was added after the DLC or something, but if you spin around in a circle for long enough in the overworld, you'll get an appearance from Jimmy, who will grant you one up to 3 wishes. However, this will also reduce your rank because oh yeah, each of these boss fights are graded based on how you do. So yeah, these boss fights are graded from a C or D to S, and you can pretty sure you can only achieve S in expert mode. Although maybe I'm wrong. Wait, no, you can only achieve S plus in expert mode. You can achieve up to an S in normal mode. But yeah, Jimmy's wishes will grant you up to 3 extra, will double your health until you win the next boss fight. And you'll still get to keep the soul contract and progress. So yeah. Then there's also what is it? Yeah, the Jimmy boss fight. Sorry, I'm stupid. Yeah, he has a chest which will open up to reveal one of 3 things. A bunch of scimitars which will float to either the top, bottom, or side of the screen, one of which will be parryable, and then try to fire at you from there. A bunch of jewels, which can actually be pretty easy to dodge once you get used to them. And the most annoying one, probably, a bunch of cats inside, a bunch of golden cats, which will fire at you like homing missiles, much like the final phase of the Root Pack boss fight. And then in phase 2, you'll have to deal with a bunch of, in this phase, you'll be flying through a corridor with a bunch of pillars, and these pillars will have Jimmy's face on them. And now, some of these will have his face on them multiple times, so it's recommended that if that's the case, you get as many of the faces as possible, because the damage from that will carry into the next phase, so you can have an automatic amount of health deplete from that phase. So you'll have to attack specifically the faces to get past, and then you move on to the third phase, which may or may not be easier depending on whether or not you follow my advice of doing sorry, but my words are stupid right now. But anyways, yeah, next phase is Jimmy's slime form, I guess, in a what are these things called again? I don't know, I'm just gonna call them a tomb. You know, like those little molds, I guess, like mold looking things that they put mummies in back in Egyptian times. Yeah, basically he'll be inside one of those, which will lead to some cosmic realm, which will become very important in the DLC. There are so many things here which will matter once we get to the DLC. I cannot stress it enough. But yes, enough about this DLC. We have more important matters to attend to right now. So he'll also send out many Jimmy mummies. Try saying that 5 times fast. To attack you, and also planets coming out of his eyeballs. Yeah, this game can be trippy as hell sometimes. But anyways, after that you fight Muppet Cuphead, or Cuphead, as he's named. Very clever studio. I'm the HR. Or the fans. I don't know which one you thought that name at this point. But anyways, yeah, on to that phase. There are actually 2 ways you can do it, because in between he scans your mind. So if he does that and you're in mini mode, it'll enter a secret phase where you have to deal with a mini Muppet of Cuphead, with a mini Cuphead and Jimmy's final phase at the same time. However, let's focus on actual Cuphead. So he fires. He fires bullets at you, obviously, like you do to other enemies, and some of them are parryable. Cool. Yeah. I can't really think of much to say about this phase, but yeah, then there's the final phase where you have to face Big Jimmy, who, yeah, there's Illuminati symbols just circling around you, and they open up their eyes and laser beams. Yes. But yeah, once you beat that, you've beaten the phase, and now we move on to Wally Warbles. So yeah, in phase 1 of Wally Warbles, he's firing eggs at you and shooting at you. So pretty simple. Then in phase 2, he's firing a bunch of feathers at you and taking short breaks that allow you to get some good hits in on him. And then in the next phase, it's actually his son Willy Warbles who you're fighting. And, yeah, he's got a bunch of spiky eggs surrounding him, and he's shooting at you, which you can parry his bullets. And then in the final phase, Wally's getting carried out by medics on a stretcher, while he's still trying to kill you with things like pills and trash cans. No, boots. But, yeah, once you finish him off, the medics, who are also birds, keep that in mind, yeah, they season him. Yeah, cannibalism, yay! But, anyways, enough of cannibalistic burr. We need to move on to bigger matters at hand. Such as Grim Matchstick. Grim Matchstick is the hardest boss in this game. I don't care what you'd say. I don't care if you think that it is Dr. Call and his robot. It is Grim Matchstick. I find Dr. Call pretty easy, honestly. And I still have yet to master the art of dealing with Grim. Still something that I still have not mastered. Seriously. But enough about my personal grievances with this fella. Let's do this. Alright, so the first phase is pretty simple. You know, he's firing fireballs at you, and also occasionally his tail will pop up. So, oh yeah, you also have to dodge his eye beams, which you can also parry if you so choose. So, yeah. Pretty simple first phase, and then we get to the second phase where he's on the other side of the screen. Oh yeah, and I mentioned that all of this is taking place on scrolling clouds. That's what makes this second phase really hard. So, yeah, let's do this. Begrudgingly, at least. So here's how this second phase goes. So, you're still on the scrolling clouds, but now Grim Matchstick is firing fireballs at you, which run on his tongue and then jump at you. Like they actually have legs. And, like, they're fully, like, sentient looking. And, yeah, he's also huffing fire. But, yeah. This third phase makes me think second half of the Sans fight in Undertale. That's what it reminds me of. Because you are on these scrolling clouds, and he is firing fireballs at you, and if you hit those fireballs, they will cluster, they will turn into 4 fireballs, so you have to dodge them, and try not to shoot them while you're shooting at Grim, and he also has a flamethrower, which takes up the entire second row every few seconds. But if you somehow manage to get past all that, you've beaten him. Good job. But yeah, the mini boss of the running guns too. I should probably mention those. So the mini boss for so there are 2 running gun levels in this, as there are with the first, second, and third aisles. So first of all is Funhouse Frazzles, which the mini boss is actually various walls, which they attack you from both. So they have a trombones, I guess, firing a pair of lips at you, I think, and then at any point, one of the 2 mouths it has is either firing a car at you or a tongue, and you have to parry off of little cards to go onto the other side. Because this level has anti-gravity mechanics. Like, you can parry off pink cards, and it'll reverse gravity for you, so you can either walk on the floor or the ceiling at any given time. But, yeah, and then there's also, Funfair Fever. Now, this one's a pretty weird mini-boss. I think it's a hot dog firing mustard, ketchup, and relish at you while you're platforming on the sign. And then you take that out, and you've beaten Funhouse Frazzle. But, yeah, those are the running gun levels, and now for the Mausoleum. So, the Mausoleum for this one introduces a brand new type of ghost, which has a little cute little bow on their head, and also circles around the urn that you're protecting, so you have to parry it before it circles its way to the urn. And what do you gain for this Mausoleum? Not a Kamehameha, that's for sure. You gain the ability to become temporarily invincible. Oh yeah, and I forgot to mention how you activate these supers. I'm so sorry. So yeah, you activate supers by building up 5 EX cards, which is the max that you can hold at any given time. Then once you press the EX button, it'll use a super. So yeah, pretty cool. And then you get another interaction with King Dice, and a cutscene with King Dice and Devil, which will lead into Aisle 3, which is its own video. Well, that and Inkwell Hell, of course. And then I'm going to make a video on the DLC, then Season 1 of the Cuphead Show, then Season 2 of the Cuphead Show, and then Season 3 of the Cuphead Show. I'm going to have to make so many Cuphead videos. Oh my god, but I am committed. See ya!